I'm so glad that all of you are here on this Father's Day. We're going to be hanging out in Psalm 23 today. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like you have been carrying the weight of the world on your back? I imagine that's a reality for a lot of us. As a matter of fact, in New York City, there is on Fifth Avenue, across the street from St. Patrick's Cathedral in the Rockefeller Courtyard, there is this statue. It's a bronze statue of Atlas. It's brilliant, it's huge, it's amazing to look at. And here it is right here, right in the heart of New York City. This was built back in 1937. And what you see is Atlas with all of his muscles, and he's straining. The closer you get up to it, the detail is amazing. And you see all of his body straining and lifting up as if he doesn't, he's going to be crushed under the weight of what is on his back. And what's on his back is the weight of the world. Now, back in 1937, coming off the Great Depression, and they started building things during that area after the Great Depression, the monument was supposed to be this symbol of strength and resiliency and resolve. We can do anything. We can strain forward as Americans and as humans. That was supposed to be the image that we're supposed to hold on to. But what's interesting is, like, back in fourth grade, I remember this story. I remember Atlas. I remember Greek mythology class, and I remember that it was not supposed to be something celebrated. This was a punishment. If you remember the story of Atlas in Greek mythology, he goes up against Zeus and the Olympian gods. He loses a war, and as punishment, Zeus decides to punish him with having to hold the sky on his back for perpetuity. Day in, day out, night after night. For the rest of his life, he would be under the strain, using all of his might not to be crushed by the weight of the world. This was not meant to be a celebration. This was a punishment to be avoided. And yet, in our day, fast forward thousands of years later, and the story has now been retold that this is the way of life. Strain with everything that you have. Do more, carry more, be more. You can do it. Keep straining. And it's actually never meant to be seen that way. It was never intended for that. I don't know about you, that hits a little bit close to home. I imagine there's many of us here today, dads included, that feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You're thinking about the pressure of providing for a family. You're thinking about the pressure in your business. You're thinking about the pressure of making all the right decisions for your future. You're living under the stress, holding the weight of a strained relationship. Maybe there's this uncertainty on your back about the future and where you're headed. Maybe there's this grief. There's this sorrow that you're holding on, and you feel like you have to do it on your own, and you have to just power through and not let anyone in. Maybe there's this weight on your back of past mistakes or regrets. For a lot of us, this image is not mythology, it is reality. It is your Monday. It is your Friday. It is this day. You're coming into this room weighted, living as if it all depends on us. And that is certainly one way to live. Now, here's the deal. I think there is something beautiful about responsibility and living and understanding the weightiness of fatherhood and parenting and for men, for being a man, there's a weight to that, and that is good. But we were not intended to do it on our own. That doesn't just go for dads or men in this room. That's for everybody. We could go that way, the way of Atlas, but what Psalm 23 shows us is that there is a better invitation, a better way to live, that we don't have to be Atlas when we have a good shepherd. Psalm 23, David opens up this famous psalm with 5 words that can change your whole life. I'm not understating that. I really believe that if this is true of us, our life is flipped radically. Here are the 5 words. The Lord is my shepherd. These 5 words changed David's life. Now, just to understand the weight and impact of that initial statement, we need to understand who was making the statement. This is King David, and what most scholars say is that he is likely writing Psalm 23 near the end of the road. He has been the shepherd boy. He has defeated Goliath. He has been chased and hunted down by Saul. He has become the king. He has made miserable mistakes and failures. He has seen amazing victories in life, and he's now kind of near the end, and he's writing, taking all of this in, and he's saying, this is what I have learned about it all. The Lord is my shepherd. The way I'm here today, how I'm standing here before you today, David's saying it, is that the Lord is my shepherd. It's not just a title, it's this personal reality. The Lord is my shepherd. He doesn't just say the Lord is a shepherd. He doesn't say the Lord is the shepherd. Those things are true. But what actually changed his life is when he was able to confess and celebrate. No, he's mine. I belong to him. I follow his lead. He's my shepherd. A question I want to open us up with today is, can you say the same thing about yourself? It is one thing to go to church. It's one thing to claim Christianity. It's an entirely different and intimate thing to say, but the Lord is my shepherd. That is an entirely new way of living your life. It's saying, I've stopped trying to do it on my own. I've stopped trying to be the shepherd, and I am now trusting my life to a shepherd. Now, he goes on to say, he describes who this shepherd is. He says, the Lord is my shepherd. So not just anyone is his shepherd, it's the Lord. Now, if you look in your actual physical Bibles, a good moment to do that. Look in your physical Bibles, or maybe even look, if you have one on your phone, you'll see that word Lord, it looks a little bit different in print. All 4 letters are in all caps. That's an important thing that the authors are doing. What it is saying is that this is the unique name of the Lord. This is the name of Yahweh. Yahweh is my shepherd. This is not a generic title for God. This is a very personal, covenantal name of God. This is what David is pointing to, is my shepherd happens to be the God of Israel, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's the God of Israel. It's the God of Moses. My shepherd happens to be the God of Genesis 1, who speaks galaxies into existence and spoke in Genesis 2 the breath of life into man. This is the same God who took down Pharaoh when his people were enslaved in Egypt. This is the same God who split a sea in 2 to give them freedom from that reign of Pharaoh. This is the same God who fed his people manna from heaven out in a wilderness and desert. This is the same God that stopped up the Jordan River so his people could cross on dry ground. This is the same God who took down the walls of Jericho and defeated all of these armies. This is the same God who kept every one of his promises, who got them into the land of promise. This is the same God who took down Goliath and defeated the Philistines. The same God that allowed David to be the king. The same God, indeed, who gives sight to the blind and rest for the weary. The the same God who calms storms with a whisper, and the same God that came to us in Jesus. This is the Lord, my shepherd, that David is speaking about. And what David is wanting us to get clear is that my shepherd is not just any shepherd. My shepherd is the GOAT. He is like the shepherd of all shepherds. He's showing up to the court, ready to ball. Imagine playing a pickup game right here Monday morning. You're playing dad ball, and you show up with Michael Jordan on your team. What happens to you in that moment when he's on your 3-on-3? The pressure is off. You're like, here, just let me dish it. Let me give it to the man. Let him do his thing. What David is recognizing in his own life is the responsibility is on him. I've got the GOAT on my team. He is leading the way. So the pressure's off. The Lord is my shepherd. Just imagine waking up to that tomorrow morning. Would your life look any different than it does right now? Coming back to that reality, oh, I live in a good world where the Lord is my shepherd. Now, what makes this statement even more stunning is David knew what it meant to be a shepherd. David was a shepherd. He knew the cost of being a shepherd. He knew the pressure of being a shepherd. He knew the responsibility of the shepherd. He knew the job. Shepherds were not, they were not soft by any means. They were not sentimental. They were rough and rugged people. They were fiercely protective. They were watchful. They would look over their flock 24/7. They would fight off enemies. They would lead them to the best places. They would know each one of the sheep by name. As a matter of fact, in 1 Samuel chapter 17, it's one of my favorite stories in the scripture. David, a young shepherd boy, he goes to King Saul. All of the Israelites are terrified because Goliath is out there. He's calling God all kinds of names, and then David, this boy, comes to the battle. All the Israelites are hiding out, and he goes to King Saul and says, "Let me take out this Philistine." And King Saul's like, "No way, you're too young. What are your credentials for fighting this giant?" And he says, "Well, I'm a shepherd." Oh, I mean, okay. I mean, it would be like, I guess. I mean, you take care of fluffy sheep. That's what you do. That's going to qualify you. No, you don't understand. Being a shepherd is hard. There's been moments, he goes on to explain to King Saul, there's been moments where bears have tried to get my sheep, and I've had to rip the bear's jaws apart so I can get my sheep back to the sheepfold. There have been moments when lions have come and they have attacked my sheep, and I have killed the lion, I have killed the bear, and he says, if you give me the opportunity, I'm going to go kill that Philistine. Like, he understood that being a shepherd meant business. It meant that you were going to risk your life for the sake of your sheep. And he knew that about his job as shepherd, and he knew that that was how the Lord was to him. As a matter of fact, here's something so beautiful. In John chapter 10, verse 11, Jesus describes himself to us. And here's his description. He says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep." You let that one sink in for a moment? The same God who created the galaxies is inviting us to know him as a shepherd, Just like David was a shepherd willing to lay down his life for his sheep, Jesus is the shepherd who laid down his life on the cross for us so that we could have life. This is the good news of the gospel, that God wants to be your shepherd. He wants to be my shepherd. So the question remains, is he though? Yes, he is a shepherd. He is the shepherd, but is he actually been yours? Is he yours right now? Or are you more like Atlas, trying to hold it all together? Here's the truth. You don't need to be Atlas when you've got a good shepherd. So David goes on for the next 6 verses, and he describes all the beauty of this shepherd. He describes what makes him so good. He gives us really 3 things to consider. 1, that he is a good shepherd who provides for us. 2, he's a good shepherd who is present with us. And 3, what makes him a good shepherd is that he pursues us. Let's just look at these 3 ideas as we flow through the scriptures. Verses 1 through 3, he's a good shepherd who provides for us. Verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd. What that means is I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. The Good Shepherd provides for us. When you put yourself under his leadership, what verse 1 says is you'll realize you lack absolutely nothing. Again, imagine waking up to that tomorrow morning. Now, what that means, it doesn't mean that life is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that you'll never face a hardship in your life. We all will. But it does mean that in him you will have everything you need to flourish, because he's going to provide for you as the shepherd. And he describes the ways he will provide. He says, I'm going to provide you rest in green pastures and lead you beside quiet waters. We have a shepherd who leads from the front. He's not a cowboy striking us from the back, telling us where to go. No, he's showing us the way. He leads us the way. All we have to do is follow his lead, and he will show us beside quiet waters and lead us into green pastures. He wants to lead us to rest. He wants to provide rest for us. You're like, why is that a big deal? Well, I think this is huge because if we live like Atlas, everything's on our back, there's no time to rest, is there? There's no time to take a break because the plates are always spinning and they all rely on you. And so, no, we don't actually rest when the world is all on us. What we do is we escape. We numb ourselves. We self-medicate. We binge for hours on Netflix. We try to escape our life. We scroll for hours endlessly so that we can escape the reality that's right in front of us. The best that we can do as the world is on our shoulders is the way of escape. But what the shepherd is providing is the way of rest. No, you just come follow me and I will show you a real rest. You can actually be still knowing that he is God, that you can take a break and the world will not disintegrate. That's Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that he is God. He is wanting to lead you in that way. He wants to provide that for you as a good shepherd. He wants to provide you rest, but he also says he's going to give you refreshment. Another way to say that in your scriptures, it might look like restore you. He'll restore you. He'll refresh you. Some of us, we come into this place broken, in pain, hurting, stuck in a rut, struggling with sin. There's just different broken, fragmented pieces of our life, and that idea of restoration is bringing back to its original state. And so what God's wanting to provide you as his good shepherd, hey, you follow me and watch how I can restore your soul. I can refresh you. Who needs refreshment today? And he provides us the right paths, it says. He'll guide us down the right paths. You've ever been on a path that you know was going to hurt you, and you still went down it anyway? Have you ever been on a path that you didn't know that was going to be dangerous, but it ended up becoming dangerous? Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was, I'll just put my toe into this, and before you know it, you're drowning in the weight of sin or brokenness. And what the good shepherd does is like, hey, I'm going to actually lead you to a different path. I know what's ahead. I know the trouble that's ahead, and I want more for you. I'm going to redirect you. So not only is he there providing rest and restoration and refreshment, he's providing redirection for us. He wants all of those things for us as our good shepherd. But there's just one catch. Is that in order for us to receive the benefit of that, the Lord has to be our shepherd. And for him to be our shepherd, that means we can't be the shepherd anymore. We like being shepherds. We like leading the way. We like knowing where we're going. We like to tell God, hey, God, this is where I want to be in 10 years. And yeah, maybe I go off course, but you'll redirect me back to where my original plan is, right? We like to be in charge. We like to know exactly what's happening. And here's the reality is if you want the life that God's offering, you can't be the shepherd anymore. There's actually, you got to understand, when David is celebrating who God is, he's also admitting his role in the relationship. Even as the king, even as one of the most powerful people on the planet, he's recognizing, I'm no shepherd, I'm a sheep. How's that sit with you guys? It's an invitation to be a sheep. Now, I really wish that in the Bible, that we as human beings would be described as something else. I wish that we were described as, we're lions, we're eagles, we're bears. I would take a monkey, give us something. No, the most common animal that human beings are compared to, a sheep. And what do sheep need? They need everything. They are the most high maintenance animals in the animal kingdom. Let me assure you, they never outgrow their neediness. They will always be in need. They were born in need and they will die in need. Their whole life is under the reign of a shepherd. They cannot survive without one. They are defenseless creatures. They got no fangs. They got no claws. They will paw at you. They are precious and fluffy, and they are lunch for a lot of animals out there. They can't see much more than 6 feet out in front of them. They will panic when there's pressure. They will follow whatever's in front of them, even if that means going off a cliff. They are not the brightest animals, and yet we're called sheep. Be encouraged. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 6 says, we all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned our own way. In Matthew 9, Jesus is looking at the people and he is broken for them. It says he has compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. What is David doing? Is he's making a declaration here that if you want the provision of a shepherd, you need to recognize that you're a sheep. That you're in need of constant care, that you're in need of constant provision. You're actually in need of following a good shepherd. That's the way this relationship is going to work. Without him, we're going to be in bad shape. With him, we're in good shape. There's actually a beautiful book. I encourage you to go get it. It's an old book called A Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23 by Philip Keller, and he was an actual shepherd after the Great Depression, he saved up all that he had to go buy like a dozen sheep after the Great Depression. This was the way he was going to provide for his family. And he talks about his experience of how hard it is to shepherd sheep. And he thought the biggest sacrifice was him working all these years, blood, sweat, and tears to get the money to buy the sheep. But he says, you have no idea. That was the easiest part of it. The hardest part was taking care of them every single day. They needed me for everything. And we are the same way. That is the story of the sheep and the shepherd. He wants to provide us, but we need to recognize that we are sheep. And as we surrender to that, we get to follow in his rest, his refreshment, his restoration, his redirection. We get to experience a good shepherd. David goes on in verses 4 and 5 and talks about not only does God want to provide for us as a good shepherd, but he's present with us in the dark valleys. He says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, your staff, they comfort me. And you prepare a place, a table before me. In the presence of my enemies, you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. So we have a God who provides, and we have a God who's present in darkness, who's present, surrounded by enemies. That's the celebration of verses 4 and 5. What Psalm 23 we need to understand is that the promise is not, oh, we get a good shepherd, we'll never have problems ever again. By no means. We will face problems. You may be facing them today. A loss that you did not see coming. A friendship that has been broken. A battle that you continue to fight and lose. A health scare. Just a season of silence where God feels distant. There are dark valleys all the time. David doesn't say if the dark valley comes. He basically says when the dark valley comes, they will come. It's been said if you are not in one currently, you're just coming out of one, or you're about to go into one, so be encouraged there. But what gives David the courage in the dark valley is not the promise that it's never going to happen. It's the promise that God is with him in the dark valley. It's God's presence. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. Why? Because you are with me in it. The promise is not that God keeps us from every dark valley. The promise is that God meets us in those dark valleys. When parents, I'm sure you can relate to this. When our kids were much younger, there'd be moments where they get really scared in the middle of the night, and they would cry and they would yell out and they would be wanting mom and dad. And we were half asleep, kind of shuffling out of bed to their rooms. Everything's dark, and initially, as a dad, I would turn on all the lights to get to the kids. And I realized after months of doing this that actually I don't need to turn on any lights. Light isn't the problem. They weren't scared of the dark. They were scared of being alone, of waking up and being alone. And I realized quite quickly that you could just go right in, and their arms are stretched out, and you swoop in, you grab them, and it can be pitch black, and they are at complete peace. Why? Because what they need in that moment is not light. What they needed was company. What they needed was to know that Dad is with me. And honestly, that's the real gift of God. It's not like I'm going to flip on all the lights so that you're never going to be in the dark. No, that's not the promise. The promise is, oh no, I'm going to hold you in the dark. I'm going to be right there with you. You can with your outstretched arms, you can cry out to me, I'm right there with you. And David, he actually understood God's nearness through two tools. It says, it's your rod and your staff that comfort me in these dark valleys. Now, a rod was what a shepherd would use to fend off all the wild attacks. so he could beat off the wild animals. So this was about protection. But then the staff had the shepherd's hook. It was a soft shape so that he could hook back his sheep that had wandered off. And so while the rod was about protection from and defending from enemies, this staff was about correction. It was about discipline. And so David understood two things are happening. That in the dark valleys, when I'm surrounded by enemies, one thing that I know that God is with me is that he's going to defend me from my enemies. But the other thing I know is when I wander off or I stray away from him, he's going to pull me back. That his correction, that it's actually a sign that he is close to me. And so if you're in that season right now where God is correcting you, like he's course correcting, that's not a sign that he's like mad and distant. That's actually a beautiful reality that he's really close. And if you're in a dark valley and you're sensing enemies all around you, you also are sensing his defense. That's another reality that he's so close. And so David, he's like, man, I'm celebrating the fact that God is with me. He's present in the dark valleys. And then the second piece in verse 5, he moves from the field to the table. He goes from kind of field to feast. And he says in verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Which is a wild image to consider. That God, you're inviting me to sit down while enemies are watching. God, you want me to have a feast even though I'm surrounded by people who want the worst from me. Even though we may be surrounded, David is saying, but I know I'm surrounded by you. And that's for David what made all the difference. So for one, he knows he has a good shepherd who's laid down his life, who's providing for him, who's present with him, no matter what trouble is around him. And then David shifts to verse 6. He doesn't stop there. He's giving us a picture. God's leading from the front towards green pastures. He's beside us in dark valleys. And this last piece is he's chasing after us in verse 6. I want you to see what David says. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. He is a provider, he's present, and he's a God who pursues us. David starts out by saying, surely, not maybe this is going to happen, not hopefully, not if I behave well enough. No, surely, with all confidence, with all conviction, with zero doubt. Surely, what does he say is sure with God being his shepherd? Surely, goodness and love are going to follow me all the days of my life. In the Hebrew, that word for follow is actually better translated. It pursues us or it chases us down. It's the same word that would be used for an army that's chasing down their enemies. It's relentless. It's all out. It's aggressive. It's intentional. I want you to think about that today, that right now you are being chased. And it's probably not what you think. That you're being chased, and it's not being chased by fear. You're being chased, and it's not by judgment. You're being chased, and it's not with shame. You're not being chased with guilt. You're not being chased by a God who's got this clipboard of all the wrong things you've ever done. You're not being chased in that way. No, what you're being chased by is the goodness and love of God all the days of your life. That's what you're being chased by. Every single day, you have a good shepherd, church. You've got a good shepherd. Now, has anyone ever been chased before? It probably wasn't good. We've probably been chased at some point. Maybe you were chased by a bully in elementary school. You were chased by debt collectors. You were chased by police officers for speeding. You've been chased by guilt. You've been chased by fear. You've been chased by your own shame. You've been chased by regret. You've been chased by sorrow. What David says, no. That's not what's chasing me. What's hot after my heels, what's on my tail is love and goodness. Even on days you blow it, He's chasing you down with goodness and love. Even on days there's misunderstanding or mistakes or mess-ups, He's chasing you down with goodness and love. Even the days that you doubt Him, He is chasing you down with goodness and love. Even on days that are hard, He's chasing you down with goodness and love. Even on days where you experience loss and sorrow, He right now is chasing you with His goodness and love. He is after you. And some of us, we get this idea, maybe we grew up with it, like, oh, He's after us with like lightning bolts and wrath. That's not the picture that David gives here. The picture that David gives here is, no, He's after me with goodness and love because He is my shepherd. And I lack nothing. This is what it means to wake up every day with God as your shepherd. I want you to think about tomorrow morning. How do you normally wake up to Monday? Just think about that for a moment. Is it worry, anxiety, fear, trouble? Or is it Psalm 23? Provision, presence, a pursuit of goodness and love. My invitation to you is maybe you have been atless for long enough. Maybe indeed it is time to hand over your life to a good shepherd. Maybe for the first time or maybe for the 1,000th time today. His goodness and love is chasing after you. So let's close our eyes, let's bow our heads, and this is really a moment of decision, of invitation for you and for me. You can go out this door and continue to live like Atlas. That is absolutely 100% available to you. The weight on the world on your shoulders, stress, worry, anxiety, being chased down by regret and perfectionism. Or you can receive the invitation of Psalm 23. Maybe for the first time today, you're realizing, wow, I have been trying to do this on my own for far too long. How's that working out for you? Probably not too well. And you're saying, man, I need a shepherd. Well, Jesus invites you to consider Him as a good shepherd who laid down His life for you. You know what gave David confidence is not on how well he did. The reason goodness and love followed him was not because, oh, David did so great. It's no, because God is so great. This is the gospel, that Jesus pursues us. Not because we're amazing, but because He's amazing. And that He died for us. And He raised from the grave for us so that we could have life to the full. green pastures, quiet waters, peace even in dark valleys. That is available to you today. So you have a choice. We all have a choice today. Continue as Atlas or surrender to the Good Shepherd. Whether this is your first time doing that or your 1,000th time making this decision, oh Lord, I pray that we would make the decision to surrender to you, our Good Shepherd. Thank you, Jesus, for making it possible for us to call you Shepherd. Help us this week live with rest, freedom, peace, joy, knowing that your goodness and love follow hard after us. So, Father, we pray these things in the good name of Jesus, our Good Shepherd. Amen.